Hi guys! Chapter 28, On Skis by Moonlight. And the word ladder is skis, skip, ship, shop, stop. A key turned in the lock, and then Samson stood in the open doorway. Marcus and Selena looked at him in astonishment. "There was a service call from this room," he said. "No, there was not!" Marcus yelled. His face was a mask of fury. "You have the wrong room," snapped Selena. She, too, was enraged. It was as if Samson had said something insulting to them. Elizabeth stood and angled hastily around the coffee table while the Himeses had their backs to her. "I was just leaving," she called out, and she dashed to Samson and gave him a little wave while she slipped past. "Thanks," she said under her breath, and then shouted from the hallway, "Nice having tea with you, Mr. and Mrs. Himes," as she rushed away. Just before dinner, Elizabeth added, "The Himeses are hiding something in their room that's making a strange noise, and the Himeses are looking for the book," to her list of strange things going on in Winterhouse. She decided not to tell Norbridge about her visit to their room, given that he had warned her against having anything to do with them, but she was positive now that the couple wanted the book, and knew much more about it than they had revealed. What she really wanted was to be able to share everything with Freddie, even if he'd been reluctant to delve too deeply into all the mysterious things she'd discovered before, and even though he most likely would have found these recent developments alarming, at least he would listen to her, and he'd probably help her think things through clearly now. Elizabeth wished she could talk with him about what she'd learned. After dinner, and after listening to a lecture on Stonehenge delivered by a Miss Sarah Clyburborn, Elizabeth returned to her room and once again went through the exercise of making the book move. This time it seemed to happen just a tiny bit more easily. By mid-afternoon the next day, right after Elizabeth had opened a guide for children and discovered the silver letters, now read, "The key is A.R." She decided to find Freddie. She wanted to attempt another apology and tell him that she had hoped that they could be friends again. She found him in his workshop. This time, instead of knocking, she simply went inside, folded her arms, and said, "Freddie, I'm really sorry about the other night, and I wish you would just forgive me and forget about it." She surprised herself with her boldness. She hadn't formed a plan about what she would do after she blurted out her apology. Freddie stopped working, but did not look up from his bench beside the table. He pushed up his glasses and then set down the canister he had been examining. He fixed her with a hard glare. "Why did you do that in the library? Call out her name like that?" Elizabeth adjusted her glasses and looked at her sleeve. "I was just, I don't know, being dumb, I guess. You just kept talking about all the things that you thought were going on here, even after Norbridge explained all of it. You really started to bug me." Elizabeth's face flushed. She opened her mouth to explain herself. She felt as though Aunt Purdy had just accused her of something, and she was all set to argue, and then she stopped. Maybe Freddie was right. Maybe she had gotten so caught up in wondering about the Himeses and the book and all of it that she hadn't noticed that Freddie just wasn't as interested. Even now, she realized that she wanted to tell him about everything that she had learned and about the strange visit with the Himeses the day before, but maybe being part of I'm sorry, guys, but maybe part of being a friend to Freddie meant respecting his interest just as much as pushing her own. Better, at least for now, to leave all of her investigating and questions out of the picture. "I understand," she said. "That's why I just wanted to apologize." She took in a deep breath, looked around at all the tools on the wall, anything to distract herself in case Freddie chose to turn her down, or worse, say nothing at all. He remained silent, and the room seemed to grow even quieter. "Well," Elizabeth said, "I guess I'll get going." "Wait," Freddie said. He tapped a finger on a tube of glue on the table, stood, and then walked to her. "I know that you're interested in some of the strange things that are going on around here, and well, I guess I'm sort of interested in them too. It's just, I want to work on my wonder log and just kind of..." "I know," she said, "I really do. I just wanted to say sorry, that's all." Freddie hesitated before speaking. "I'm going to work here for most of the afternoon. But you know that skiing trip tonight?" "Yes," Elizabeth said. "I was thinking of going. Two of the attendants at the ski shack had announced at dinner the previous evening that they were organizing a night skiing trip along the west side of Lake Luna for that very evening. I was thinking maybe we could go together, Freddie said. He put out a hand to her. And I accept your apology. She took his hand and began to shake. For sure, she said. She was trying to remain calm, but inside she felt ecstatic. Freddie wanted to be friends again. Okay, he said. I better get back to this project. I'll see you at dinner. Elizabeth smiled. I'll see you then. She took a piece of paper out of her pocket and handed it to him. Oh, hey, I wanted to give this to you too. Freddie looked at it uncertainly. What is it? Elizabeth nodded. Open it. Once he did, he saw written on it these words. Nuts, nurs, furs, furl, fuel. Freddie's eyes went wide. He peered closely at the paper as if he was overlooking something, and then he began to laugh. Nurs? He said. Come on, that's not even a word. It is, Elizabeth said. A nur is like a knot in wood. And before you say anything else, furl means to roll up. She was practically yelling. She was so excited. It had taken her a long time, but with the dictionary she had checked out of the library, she had worked her way through the word ladder, just as she had promised him. Freddie continued to study the words and nodded admiringly. 4 steps. He looked up. Okay, I'm impressed. After dinner, Elizabeth and Freddie joined a group of 25 other guests as the skiers, beneath a full moon and clear sky, assembled outside, put on their headband lanterns, and prepared to hit the trail. I wonder if we'll find any wonder logs out there, Elizabeth said to Freddie as they began to head off with the others in a line of skiers. We should be careful. Freddie laughed, and Elizabeth felt he had completely set aside any lingering hard feelings. They'd even sat together once again at dinner. I am almost done perfecting it, you know, he said. The night was crisp and cold, with the bright moon casting a pale light on Lake Luna and the mountains and snow-clad hills all around. The trees loomed high over stretches of the trail, and the swish-swishing sound of the skiers ahead of and behind Elizabeth became hypnotic. She glided steadily, pushing along and stretching her legs out, almost like moving across ice on skates. She felt free and easy, glad she'd been doing so much skiing while at Winterhouse. In her notebook, she had already added skiing to her list of activities, hobbies. There's a new one for you. Hobbies and fun things I want to keep doing from now on. And she found it amazing that she was able to have this kind of fun during all the endless winter days and nights with Aunt Purdy and Uncle Burlap. She had never guessed she would someday be going cross-country skiing anywhere. After about 20 minutes, the group of skiers had stretched out along the trail, the faster ones moving to the front and the slower ones dropping to the rear, and Elizabeth and Freddie found themselves drifting to the back of the group, occasionally out of sight of the stragglers, and alone on some short stretches of the trail as it twisted around the lake and wound through the trees. Their lanterns provided good enough light, and up ahead they could see the flickering points of illumination from the other skiers, but they were falling behind everyone else. Let's just go at our own pace and not worry about them, Elizabeth said to Freddie, and they glided along steadily in the quiet night. After a little while, they came to a spot where a frozen creek dropped down from the slope above them and passed under the trail, all of it lit up by the shining moon. A short bridge spanned the gap, and on the other side of it, Elizabeth noticed a smooth path of snow leading away from the lake. She glanced further ahead there through the trees, and bright in the moonlight stood a cabin. It looked so peaceful and so inviting, she gazed at it for a moment. Elizabeth stopped and called to Freddie just in front of her. He halted and looked back. What is it? He said. She pointed toward the clearing. Look. Freddie turned to the cabin and then back at Elizabeth. We should try to catch up with the group, he said. They said everyone can just go at their own pace, Elizabeth said. There's only one trail, so we can't get lost. She pointed with one of her poles at the cabin. Don't you want to check it out? Freddie glanced at the cabin again and began shaking his head. I think we should just keep skiing. Just for a minute, she said. Okay. You can even just wait here. The cabin was bathed in moonlight. There was something so alluring about the cabin as it stood alone in the silence, something so inviting. Elizabeth felt she had to take a look. I'll be right back. Elizabeth, Freddie said in a low voice, I don't think it's a good idea to go up there. It's just an old cabin, she said. Freddie studied it once more. I guess, he said. I'll be right back, really. She unclipped her skis, she stepped off the trail, and headed for the cabin. And that takes us to chapter 29, and that chapter is called The Dark Cabin.